Goes to Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 204 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 60 of A Storm of Swords. That's Tyrion 8.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter. We're going to try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
Weird, actually. So, Sansa was the longest break we've ever had between two POV, and now Tyrion is the shortest break we've ever had, because it's only two chapters.
He's almost back to back.
Yeah. We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes for interesting information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I have nothing to complain about. My life is a bed of roses.
That's right. That's what you say. You've made this proclamation before that life is too good for you to have things to complain about. So
exactly. I am so lucky. I'm so blessed. I will say, so Rob mentioned when he was on that the Hornets remember faces.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So he wants to issue every exterminator in Raleigh with a mask of me that they can use whilst dislodging.
So you will become public enemy number one of bald-faced hornets.
Exactly. Yes.
That's
a really scary thing, by the way, that he brought that up.
Yeah, as if they weren't terrifying enough. Have you seen them? Did you look up one?
I saw one glance, and that was enough. I didn't need to see any more.
Yeah, they're terrifying, and they're carnivores. They're not like honeybees. Well, I don't know. I don't think they make honey. I don't think that's something they do. But they don't even do like nice, useful things like make honey. They eat meat.
Well, are they carrion eaters? Do they eat, because if they eat like dead things, that's kind of a service to the world.
I'm not sure about that bit, but I know they eat other bees. Like they'll take other bees back to their lair.
That's not good. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Put them in their dungeons and torture them, probably.
Well, my life, my joy, Carson, has had a horrible bug bite on her arm. She was showing it to me the other day, and it's kind of like bulged up where she's been bitten. And she said, "What is that? What happens when it hatches?" And I said, "We will look after it as if it's our own, dear." She liked this. She liked this very much. She stole this joke and told it to multiple people.
That's how you know when someone really likes your joke.
Exactly.
When I remember in college, Stacy and I started dating in college, and we met through my roommate. He was in class with her. He was in her major, and they were on a project together, and they were meeting at our apartment, and that's how I originally met Stacy. But I remember, this was a long time ago, so I don't remember the specifics, but I was telling her some story that had happened. Oh, I remember what it was. I even remember what it was. Do you know pointers, like those laser pointers?
Yes.
Well, back in the day, they were like little pens, and they had a red beam that shot out.
Yes.
Well, we randomly came across one, my roommates and I. I'm not even sure how we ended up with it, but we were seeing how far we could shine it, and we were shining it like way across campus, like, into windows and stuff. And lo and behold, the police showed up, and at our door, because someone thought that I was shining. Pointing a gun with a laser pointer, like a laser sight, whatever. And so the police showed up and were like, "Do you have a gun with a laser scope or whatever?" And I was like, "No, it's just this laser pointer." And they were like, "Oh, well, quit doing that. You're freaking people out."
It's the benign part of that equation.
Yes. Yes. Can't do anything more than point it. And so I was telling Stacy the story, and she's like, "Wait a second. Your roommate told me that story happened to him." I was like, that was all me. That happened to me. So he liked the story so much that he claimed that that had happened, that he was the one that had this happen.
Interesting. So who's telling the truth, Mackelly?
It was me. It was me, as far as we all know.
If he has his own podcast, we'll find out the
Right.
truth. Yeah.
He wasn't
Interesting.
even there when that happened. He was off somewhere. So, anyway, yes, that's how you know when you've got a good story, when someone copies it and
Uh-huh.
runs with it. Speaking of stories, we had a bit of an incident last night. Stacy and I were watching Righteous Gemstones. Are you watching that show?
I
Danny
know it,
McBride.
but I have not watched any of it.
Very funny show. We're very much enjoying it. My sister turned us on to it and very much enjoying it. And we were watching halfway through the season 2 finale. And Molly comes back. She had been at the mall with some friends, and then because this is the end of summer, they were going to have a end of summer before school starts. They were going to have a sleepover. She was having 2 friends stay the night. And she comes in
That's such
and
Americana, by the way. Just the whole thing. She went to the mall, sleepover for the end of summer. It's like, yeah, that's Americana right there.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. It is. She comes in. She's got a shoe bag, a bag from a shoe store
Okay.
with her because she was supposed to be buying school shoes.
Okay.
School shoes shopping. Probably another Americana thing.
Oh, and that happens worldwide, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she comes in and Stacy's like, we were going to reimburse her. She's showing us the shoes. Stacy says, how much were they? She tells Stacy how much. Stacy goes to transfer the money over to her, electronically style. And Molly goes, well, you could just not transfer me the money because something just happened just now. And her best friend was trying to do a 3-point turn in the street, and on the backup part of the 3-point turn, smashed into the back of Ethan's car.
Oh,
And she just so casually, we're like, "How was the mall?" "Oh, it was good. It was good." "Oh, you got shoes?" Yeah, I got these shoes. Yeah, they're nice. How much were they?" "Oh, they're this much." "Oh, and by the way,
it was
my
in
best friend."
the friend's car, not Molly's
Yes.
car.
No,
Okay,
the
so
friend was driving,
right,
and
right.
she was trying to do a 3-point turn, backing up portion. She slammed right into the back of Ethan's car. So put a bit of a damper on the night, but it was a honest mistake. And actually, I went to the auto body shop, the collision center today, and the repair cost was significantly less than we thought it was going to be.
Well,
So that was
I'm glad to hear.
yeah, but
Was it more or less than a pair of shoes?
it was a good bit, about maybe 15 pairs of those particular shoes. and,
I
and the
see.
funny thing is Ethan was so cool about it, and he was like, "Oh, it's mistakes happen. It's okay. Is she all right? Is everything okay?" And I was talking to him on the way to the body shop today, and I was like, "Wow, you were really cool about handling the car situation." And he said, "Well, so what happened was Stacy found out. She goes berserk, calls Ethan, who's upstairs, shouts at him to get down here right now, and hangs up. And so he comes down thinking he's in trouble,
Yeah.
only to find out, okay, it
Somebody
wasn't me."
else.
Yes. So he was just relieved that he wasn't the one. So to him, it was a step down from what he was going through his mind.
We have a slightly similar story actually. My son, as you know, works at a local Target.
I do
Uh,
know.
and I don't know if this has been mentioned on the podcast, but he's dating a lady.
I did not know this.
Yes, he's dating a lady, and she just started at NC State, and he was
Okay.
helping her furnish her room. So she went to Target to shop. He gets an employee discount, and
Right. Yeah.
he has a Target card that belongs to us, which he
Uh huh.
uses, but he gets the discount on top of that. So when that card gets
Right.
used, we get a decent discount.
Yeah.
So he came home and he said, "All right, if you see a big charge on the Target card,"
I don't even know where this is going, and I'm already laughing.
he said, he said, yeah. So we were furnishing her dorm room. We bought everything she needed, but don't worry, she's reimbursed me through Venmo. And me and Carson are both like, "But hang on a second,
It's not your account.
exactly. You don't pay that bill." Did you ever see the movie Reality Bites with Winona Ryder?
Yes.
Do you remember she got a gas card from her parents and that was all they would give her was the gas card? So she waited outside the gas station and bought everyone who came through's gas and got cash from them. So, my son has latched on to this idea, I
Right.
feel.
Maybe he's seen that movie recently. And I was like, I know how to
Exactly.
fill my bank account up.
Uh,
He did find he lost his phone at work, and you and I tried to troubleshoot the situation.
yes, yes, it worked beautifully. And do you know what's funny? Actually, the next day I lost my phone. So he lost his phone, and the very next day I lost my phone. And when we lost his phone, it was a rigmarole and real stressor for everybody in the house. When I lost
Yes.
my phone, I told my Google Home to make my phone ring, and I immediately got a call from my friend Tim, who said, "Oh, your phone's here."
Oh, huh. Well,
And
there
I
you
was,
go.
yeah, I was like, "That, you see, is how you do it."
Uh-huh.
Hmm. All right. Let's get down to business. How did we
Yes.
leave Tyrion Lannister? Last we saw of Tyrion, he was getting nowhere implicating his bereaved wife, Sansa, and was plotting to marry off his lover Shay to Sir Tollard the Tall, a hedge knight who has definitely noticed her. Since then,
Hmm.
we've seen his wedding gift to Joffrey chopped to bits and his respect for his nephew drop ever lower. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one? Um, this one should be good because it wasn't us.
It wasn't us. That's right. This summary comes courtesy of Genevieve. So thank you very much, Genevieve. I've read through it. I do know that it is a very good summary of a very, I don't want to say interesting, a very good chapter,
It's a
we'll
terrific
say.
chapter. Yeah, yeah, it really was.
Yes, terrific. Yes. So here it goes. In the Great Sept of Baelor.
Just an aside here. Do you think English people have less hang-ups about positive adjectives? I've been thinking about this as a theory that Americans find positive adjectives a little bit harder to say. You see,
Oh,
I'll say terrific and lovely and charming and delightful. I just say those. That's perfectly. But Americans, it feels like they're a little bit narrower and they feel a little self-conscious saying those
little.
words.
I would have never thought uh, I mean, I've never thought to be self conscious about the word interesting if it hadn't become a thing on this show. Which I believe your brother pointed out originally.
He
So,
was the originator of this, yes. But he's English, you see. That backs up my
all right.
theory.
Anyway, so in the Great Sept of Baelor, Tyrion watches on as Joffrey and Margaery are wed. Margaery is adorned in the Tyrell colors, a maiden's cloak of gold roses on green velvet, instead of the black and gold colors of her late husband, Renly Baratheon's house.
King Joffrey dons a cloak of Lannister crimson, blazoned with the stag and lion, a gold crown on his head. Tyrion fidgets where he stands, uncomfortable with a sleepless night, courtesy of Shay, and a full
Uh-huh.
bladder, courtesy of the wine. Tyrion can't help but let his thoughts wander from the wedding. He muses about the Valyrian steel dagger that was used in Bran's failed assassination. With his new comprehension, he strikes off previous suspects. Not Jaime, not Cersei, but Joffrey. Tyrion remembers his time back in Winterfell and recalls how Joffrey would have the means and opportunity to commit the crime.
Amidst the chaos of King Robert's visit, Joffrey would have no trouble picking out the dagger among Robert's possessions, then paying some free rider to kill the boy. But why? All Tyrion can come up with is Joff's innate cruelty. Anyway, the wedding continues with 7 vows, 7 blessings, and 7 promises. Tyrion watches on with indignation as the exchange of cloaks occurs without event, bitterly remembering his own farce of a wedding. Joffrey kisses Margaery as the High Septon pronounces them wed.
The ceremony over, the procession leaves the sept, with Prince Tommen as flower boy. Outside, the small folk gather to cheer the king and his new bride. Tyrion and Sansa offer their congratulations to the happy couple. On the journey back to the castle, Tyrion thinks about how beautiful Sansa is and how grief only amplifies her beauty. He offers to bring Sansa on a visit to Casterly Rock, thinking how there would be no safe places for dwarves once Joffrey becomes king in his own right. Sansa returns with her usual, if it will please me to please my lord, making Tyrion feel like he'd have better success talking to a brick wall.
Back at the castle, Tyrion takes a long awaited bathroom break and gets ready for the wedding feast. He can smell the opulence. You know what? Speaking of bathroom breaks, your pedantry last week was there enough restrooms at the Sept of Baelor. So here we
Hey,
go.
I
Maybe
mean,
the
you try.
line was too long.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, uh, he can smell the opulence in stark juxtaposition to the fighting in the Riverlands. He considers the recent deaths of Robb Stark and Balon Greyjoy and thinks about how the War of the Five Kings is all but over.
Later, Tyrion and Sansa enter the throne room for the wedding feast. Tyrion admires how Sansa flits about the room, exchanging polite social niceties with the guests. Sansa would have made a good queen to Joffrey, should he have had sense to see it.
Lady Olenna Tyrell comes over to tell Sansa how beautiful she looks and to offer her condolences, straightening out her hair and hairnet. Joffrey and Margaery enter the dining hall on large white horses, and the feast begins. Joffrey makes a toast to his new wife, and the crowd cheers. The food is served with 77 courses to come.
Tyrion looks around the hall, watching the merrymaking of the other guests, while contemplating the sullen affair between Sansa and himself. He calls for more wine as the singers start to perform. As the singers sing, Tyrion considers the fate of another singer, Simon Silvertongue, who wound up in a bowl of brown. Otherwise, the food, wine, and entertainment flowed throughout the night.
Soon enough, Joffrey calls for the royal jousters. A pair of dwarves are ushered in, one riding a pig, the other a dog. The dwarves present a mock image of jousters, wearing painted wooden armor and carrying shields and lances. They amuse the crowds as they battle. Shenanigans ensue as the dwarves' act becomes more and more raucous. Joffrey, drunk on wine and mirth, stands up and mocks Tyrion. He commands that his uncle fight the dwarves as the king's champion. Everyone now laughs at Tyrion.
Furious and very drunk, Tyrion rebuffs his nephew. The crowd falls silent, awaiting the king's reaction. Anger growing, Joffrey dumps a goblet of wine over Tyrion's head, calling him the imp. Trying to defuse the situation, Margaery insists that a toast will be made. Joffrey retorts that he has no wine for a toast and commands Tyrion to serve him wine. Humiliated, Tyrion refills the king's goblet.
Lord Tywin then announces that the pigeon pie is being brought out. Joffrey calls for Sir Ilion's sword to cut the pie. It is not lost on Sansa that his sword is no longer ice, her father's greatsword. Together, Joffrey and Margaery cut the pie, releasing a flight of doves. Tyrion, drenched in wine and having had enough, tries to leave with Sansa, but before he can leave, Joffrey is back, taunting him. Drinking more wine, Joffrey starts shoving fistfuls of Tyrion's pigeon pie into his mouth. In between bites, Joffrey soon starts complaining that the pie is dry and tries to drink more wine.
This endeavour does not go well for Joffrey, who ends up in a coughing fit. The more he coughs, the redder his face turns, spluttering up wine and pie. Joffrey clutches his throat as the crowd fears that the king is choking. Joffrey's fingers begin to dig into his throat, and pandemonium erupts in the dining hall. Cersei runs to her boy, who's slowly turning a violent shade of purple. Tyrion muses that he had probably had the better wedding in comparison.
He tries to find Sansa in the crowd, but she's nowhere to be seen. With the maesters and Kingsguard powerless to do anything, Tyrion dumps the rest of the wine in the king's chalice out onto the floor. Joffrey's face is now turning black. When Cersei screams, Tyrion knows that it's over. Before he can think, Cersei commands the Kingsguard to arrest him for the murder of the king.
Okay.
Well, first let's thank Genevieve. That was a great
Yes.
summary.
Yes,
So,
and also I think she's more and more she's catching our voice because the word
yes, right.
shenanigans in there, I was like, that's what we would have
I
said.
I like flight of pigeons. That
Yes, yes.
I looked that up. That is one of the terms for a group of pigeons, a flight of pigeons.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Now, I want to say before we start that I like to think of myself as a decent person, and despite all evidence to the contrary, uh, but I would like to take a moment to just thank the heavens for the death of Joffrey Baratheon because if anybody ever deserved it, it was him.
Yeah, when I finished the chapter, the song "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead"
Ah,
started playing in my head.
I
But
can't believe that you mentioned that. I almost put that in the notes myself. That's
really,
Yep, absolutely the same song, exactly the same
huh,
song.
I wonder if anybody else had this phenomenon
Uh-huh.
happen.
There's a German sort of like sort of electronic star called Klaus Nomi, and he has a version of that song, which is the one that actually sang in my head. I'm guessing it wasn't the one that you were thinking of, but
Probably not.
the gist was the same.
Okay. You know, as much as I wanted to rejoice, I also felt bad about the relief because he is a child. You know, he was what, 13, and that's
Yeah, yeah, I'll try to be nice,
it's
but it's hard.
it's tough to rejoice in the death of a 13-year-old boy, even if he was a pretty awful
I
person.
I remember our conversation with Dr. Honda and how there
Uh-huh.
was still room uh for for him to improve. But we
Right.
we said at the time that given the environment he was in, there was no hope of that because he was
Yes.
already the king and nobody was countering his worst impulses. And that's what he needed, someone to counter his worst impulses. So he was only going to get worse. The realm is
Yeah.
better off without him. I'm sorry to be so relieved.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
Yeah.
And I'm relieved as well. And probably, if everyone in that throne room is being honest, a lot of them are relieved as well.
Cersei would be an exception.
Yes. Cersei, not so
Tommen's
much.
an interesting one. I mean, he's only a kid. He's lost his big brother, but I mean, presumably he had a brothers tend to have a sense of what another brother is like, and he probably was like, "Oof,
Yes.
not only
Yes,
am I
that's
the king, but phew, we got rid of that guy."
I'm sure it's a bit complicated in little Tommen's mind right
Yeah.
now.
And one more shout out to Melisandre's leeches.
Oh, yes.
She called three. She burned three leeches and has killed three kings, or she saw three kings die in the fire and just went through a masquerade with the three leeches. Possible,
Right. Yes,
but
yes.
again, she was planning to kill Edric Storm and use
Right.
all his blood. What the heck was she going to do with all that?
I guess
What?
take out the great other. Well, one, we know she was going to bring the stone dragon to life.
Well, that's true, but
Maybe that takes up a good portion
yeah, but
of the
I
blood.
mean, it's extraordinary what she did with the three leeches. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
I would be very careful with my blood around her if I had any
Yes,
royalty.
absolutely. Yeah, and you know, when Stannis gets word of Joffrey's demise, he just might reconsider poor Edric's fate because, you know, he was already a little bit considering it.
If I were Edric, I'd be like, you can have a couple more leeches full, sure. Knock yourself out.
You could have a whole pint if you feed
Yeah.
me some cookies.
I will say I think it's kind of funny how warmly welcomed Renly's ghost was at the Battle of the Blackwater, but
Uh-huh.
how shunned he was at the wedding of his widow to Joffrey Brad.
He was doesn't appear to have been invited, I
No,
guess.
no, no, no. But
And you know,
but actually, just a thought here. She doesn't have to change her last name. She was
she
already
doesn't,
Marjorie Baratheon. Now she stays Marjorie
right?
Baratheon.
Now she came to him in a Tyrell uh, maiden's cloak. So does that mean she went back to her maiden name in between
Well, maybe, but
Baratheon kings?
uh-huh, maybe so.
And speaking of cloaks and Baratheon kings, did you notice that Joffrey was wearing red on red? At Joffrey Baratheon was wearing red on red as far as his doublet and his clothes,
And those,
rest of his clothes
and you're
went.
telling me those are Baratheon colors.
They are not Baratheon colors.
Okay,
They're
okay,
very much
okay.
Lannister covers
uh,
colors.
I see, I see. Hmm.
Yeah, you know. Speaking of also Margaery, showing up in her maiden's cloak, Tyrion wonders whether she was indeed a maiden, and Stannis, back when he parlayed with Renly, commented that Margaery is still likely a maiden being married to Renly. So
Right.
you know,
If gossip is to be believed, then he would not have been interested in consummating the marriage, and Joffrey certainly didn't get a chance to, so she may still
right?
be.
Yes, twice divorced
Uh-huh.
or twice widowed,
Twice
I guess
widowed,
it is,
yes, yeah.
and possibly still a maiden. And I also noticed that Joffrey was called out by both houses, Joffrey of houses Baratheon and Lannister, but Margaery was just Margaery of House Tyrell. No mention of her Hightower mother, Allery. So They're really pushing this, two houses thing with the king.
Yeah, well, there's no Baratheons there to fight for his Baratheons. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only thing that gives him legitimacy to the throne. Otherwise, they might just drop the name
Oh
entirely,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we talked a lot last time about the dagger and how Joffrey reacted to the mention of the dagger. Um, Tyrion and you said at the time we didn't know exactly what Tyrion was thinking because it wasn't his POV chapter, but here we are. Now we know what he was
Right,
thinking. He remembered the sort of history of the dagger and how it was used in the assassination attempt on Bran. Uh, And there was no doubt he saw something in Joffrey's look to make him think that Joffrey was involved with this dagger. And
right.
also enough of a look to make him, at least in Tyrion's mind, clear Cersei and Jaime of involvement.
Yeah, his rationale was that Jaime would never hire someone else, another man, to do his killing for him, and Cersei wouldn't be dumb enough to use a dagger that can be traced back to her.
Right.
And I think both of those are true. I think that's uh, I agree with that observation. And
Yes. But it
but
does leave the big question, why would Joffrey do it?
right, that is
Joffrey's a
the
mean-spirited and horrible person, but only to what's right in front of him.
right. Yes, and I think Tyrion's case is pretty weak when it comes to the Who, and mostly because it's still unclear as to why the Who, if he had a good reason, if he had a good motive for Joffrey, I could maybe get behind this. But we, at least as of yet, we have not heard a good reason as to why, other than just his general cruelty.
Right, but his general cruelty doesn't express itself in convoluted plans to murder other people. It expresses itself
Right.
in lashing out at what's in front of him. Now,
Yes. Direct
right,
attacks.
there is a motive for Joffrey to do this, but the motive would only exist if Joffrey knew something, which we don't believe Joffrey would know. The motive for Joffrey to do this is to silence Bran about what he saw,
Right.
which is why Cersei and Jaime have always been uh, prime candidates for this. But there's no way that Joffrey would know what Bran had seen. There's just no
Right.
way. That doesn't make any sense.
It does not. We have never gotten the indication that Joff knows or believes, if he does know, that his true father is Jaime.
Right. I mean, think about. So let's. I'm going to pull a name out of the hat here. The Hound. The Hound knows why Bran fell. He knows that Cersei and Jaime were having sex, were disturbed by Bran, and pushed him to his near death. The Hound tells Joffrey all that. Joffrey can't process that information. He's too young to
Right.
understand it. Yes, rationally, a good thing for Joffrey at that point would be to kill Bran so that that secret, which goes to his legitimacy as the heir to the throne, dies with Bran. But there's no way
Right.
that 12-year-old boy figures that out. He'd be too busy going, "Shut up! Not my mom!"
Right. You're lying.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a weird thing.
Yeah. So I could give a real brief history of the dagger and where it's been and what we know about it if you think that would
Would
be
help
helpful.
me.
Okay. Well, as we know, it began with the Catspaw trying to kill
Right.
Bran and then being defended by Cat and killed by Summer. And then Cat made the assumption that the Lannisters hired the man and that Bran must have seen something he shouldn't have. She then goes to King's Landing to tell this to
Quick
Ned.
interruption, please. I'd never thought of the fact that the cat's paw injured cat's paw.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
right.
Carry on.
I'd never
Mhm.
either. So she goes to King's Landing to tell Ned about everything that's happened with this dagger. Littlefinger intercepts her and tells Cat and Varys that it was his dagger and he lost it in a bet to Tyrion, who had bet on Loras Tyrell versus his brother Jaime in a tilt at a name day tournament for one of Joff's birthdays. Cat then later takes Tyrion prisoner at the inn at the crossroads. And on the trek to the Eyrie, and Tyrion insists that he never owned the dagger and that he would always bet on Jaime.
On Jamie, that's the one thing I always remember him saying. He would never bet against Jamie.
Now the dagger from Cat in Ned's meeting, the dagger went with Ned. He keeps the blade. And then when Littlefinger betrays Ned in the throne room, Littlefinger grabs the dagger that is sheathed in Ned's belt, I guess, and puts it to Ned's throat. So now the dagger has moved into Littlefinger's hands, which apparently is where it began in the first place. Then, when Tyrion arrives in King's Landing, Littlefinger offers him the dagger and Tyrion declines. And that's when Tyrion realizes that Littlefinger is aware that Tyrion knows that Littlefinger lied to the Starks and blamed him. Mm-hmm. So, then later at the very beginning of this book, Storm of Swords, in the River Run dungeons, Jaime admits to Cat and Brienne that he pushed Bran from the window, but denies Cat's charge of hiring the Catspaw to kill Bran. Jaime then also backs up Tyrion's claim that Tyrion would never have bet against him during the tourney, which again contradicts Littlefinger's claim that Tyrion won the dagger from him by betting on Loras. Jaime also remembers that the dagger did change hands and remembers Robert displaying it at the tourney's feast, which indicates that Littlefinger lost it to Robert, not to Tyrion. So that's all the convoluted history of the dagger so far in this story.
Which puts it in Robert's possession at the time that it was used, and therefore Joffrey's ability to get hold of it is real. But you've got to imagine that all those people who came north, there probably wasn't a lot of security around the king's possessions during that journey. I mean, some, but not that much. So it's pretty much anyone who was on that journey could have been involved, really.
Yes, and Tyrion tells us in this chapter that Robert was generous to a fault with his possessions and would have given it to Joffrey had Joffrey asked, but he might have given it in a drunken stupor to anybody, you know. Right. He might have just given it to someone and then forgot, or you know, they probably weren't all that well guarded, as you said, so someone might have just taken it.
Yeah.
But his rationale, by him I mean Tyrion's rationale for Joffrey selecting the dagger feels a little bit confusing to me. Maybe if we discuss it, we can sort it out. But the whole case is based on Joffrey's prior knowledge of Valyrian steel. Mm-hmm. He had said he knows it's sharp. He remembers, you know, he's familiar with it. Yet here in this chapter, Tyrion decides that Joffrey didn't know about Valyrian steel, or he wouldn't have chosen Littlefinger's dagger. So did he or didn't he know that it was Valyrian steel? And if Tyrion decides no, he wouldn't have known about Valyrian steel, or he wouldn't have chosen this dagger, does his rationale still hold up?
I mean, there wasn't even within Robert's possessions, there wouldn't have been a lot of Valyrian steel hanging around. This dagger would be just about the only example. So for Joffrey to know anything about this, he would have to know about this dagger. So yeah, you're right. Yes. Tyrion can't be right on both of these things. He's either
they contradict each other.
They absolutely do, yeah.
Either he knew it was Valyrian steel when he gave it to the Catspaw, or he didn't know it was Valyrian steel and therefore doesn't know about Valyrian steel unless it's about something other than this dagger.
Which seems... But then he wouldn't have been suspicious when he said, I know Valyrian steel. He would only be suspicious if he knew about this dagger and knew how this dagger had been used.
Yes, exactly. So, now possibly he meant that Joffrey realized it was Valyrian steel, but didn't know the particular history of this dagger, or else he wouldn't have picked a dagger traceable back to Littlefinger. Maybe that's what he meant. That's the only way I could put that together that made sense, that still holds Tyrion's case together.
Well, I'm hoping we get more, because I'm not convinced. I mean, Tyrion seems convinced, but I am still... To me, the very big lack here is motive. There's no
Yes,
logical motive. There is a motive, but the motive that exists can't possibly be known by the perpetrator, Joffrey.
right,
That
right.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It doesn't. It's now. I mean, Tyrion just coming up with this idea. Maybe if he had more time to sit on it, he'll poke
If
some
he was
holes in
here
his own
with us
idea.
now, he'd be, spitballing. He'd be like, "Yeah, I see what you're saying, guys. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
quite hold up."
right. He's not. He doesn't have anyone to bounce this idea off
Exactly.
of.
Yeah.
But he does think that now Joffrey knows that Tyrion knows about the dagger, and he thinks to himself, "My big mouth is going to be the death of me," which is the same thing that Tywin told him just a few chapters ago.
So that.
So, you
Yeah.
know.
So anyway, back to the wedding. Tyrion is worried for Margaery, which it's interesting that that thought comes at the beginning of this chapter that ends the way it does, because that does go
Right.
to potentially a motive. Let's assume Joffrey is murdered here. There is the possibility he
Uh huh.
simply choked on pigeon pie because he kept stuffing his face, but let's
Right.
assume there is murder here. One of the Tyrells have been quite sanguine about their granddaughter, marrying this man who they know to be a monster. And Tyrion, sorry, is worried for Margaery, but the Tyrells never seemed
Right.
that worried for Margaery. Maybe the Tyrells are the instigators of all this, and they never worried about her because they knew she would never have to face a wedding night with him.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, she also has Loras on the Royal Kingsguard, but Loras is sworn to protect Joffrey.
Right.
That's why it's called the Royal
Yeah.
Kingsguard, not necessarily uh, the Queen against Joffrey. And we'll learn sometime in the not too distant future about how Mad King Aerys treated his wife Rhaella and the quandary it left for the Kingsguard at that time.
I will say, I
Um,
was going to say, but then as I thought it through, I didn't actually hold up that the king would never invite the Kingsguard into the wedding chamber. He would leave them outside, especially if it was the brother of the bride. But then I remembered who we were talking about, and Joffrey might very
right.
well
Yes.
invite Loras inside to witness what he was about to do.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And all that said, if Joffrey were to have hurt Margaery, I don't think that honor would have stopped Loras from defending her. You know, the honor of the Kingsguard vow. I think he probably would have broken that vow to defend
Yeah.
her.
You do see the value of this whole wedding to the Lannisters because the small folk love Marjorie. I mean, Marjorie is beautiful and she is part of the family that brought food back to King's Landing. So there's good associations with her. And by marrying her, they reconstitute Joffrey's image in the eyes of the small folk.
Yeah, well, you can definitely see the effects of the positive PR, which we've talked about many times here in King's Landing, especially with Tyrion. You know, when the Tyrells arrived, they heralded Marjorie well before she arrived, claiming that the food was brought on her behalf. She was having the food brought in. And, you know, as this lack of PR effort from the Lannisters continues, just book after book, I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's not their fault. Being the richest house, accustomed to being admired and supported without having to put any effort into marketing themselves, you know, maybe they're just used to doing whatever they want and the small folk has to deal with it.
Uh,
And
okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'll go the opposite direction here. They because of all those things, they have a fundamental lack of caring for the small folk, which the Tyrells don't have, because the Tyrells actually come with hearts, and so they do care about the plight of the small folk. They're not only doing it for PR, they're certainly doing it for PR, but they actually don't want the people to starve because they
yeah, although, as Tyrion points out, it was Mace Tyrell that shut down the Rose Road in the first place that exacerbated the famine.
right, but at the time they were fighting against,
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, the small folk, I guess, are easily persuaded because they're cheering Joffrey again, who is the same king that led a sortie into a hungry crowd, and the same king that fired arrows into the
Mm.
crowd.
You see, Tyrion needs to mention the fact that he contributed Simon Silvertongue to the Bowl of Brown, because that might have been a
Right.
really good week for Brown, you
Ugh. Ugh. But Tyrion really is trying to reach out to Sansa in this chapter, especially we see it most prevalently in the ride in the litter from the Great Sept of Baelor back to the Red Keep, when he thinks to himself, I want to break through her icy cold courtesy. And he proposes that they go to Casterly Rock together after things calm down in the realm a bit. And, I actually mentioned that before when in the episode that Rob and I did together as an alternative to getting out of this the situation here at King's Landing. It definitely has some merit. At the time, I thought it would be good for his mental health, but now in this chapter, we see that it would probably have been good for the longevity of his life. So, you know, and at the time, I had said, him being the highest ranking Lannister in Casterly Rock, even if he would never, Tywin would never let him be Lord, would be a positive for him, uh, a new place for him and his wife to maybe try and come to some sort of terms
it is,
here.
of course, possible that they have sons, and if they had sons, Tywin might make one of them the heir to Casterly Rock.
Sure, yeah, if you think about it, Tywin has two options. He can name Tyrion the his heir and the future Lord of Casterly Rock and keep it in his nuclear family. He could make one of his brother's sons, or, well, I would say Tommen, but now it looks like Tommen's got another role
For
that
higher
he's destined
things,
for.
yes.
Yes, but if he wants to keep it in his nuclear family, he's gonna have to go through Tyrion. That's the only option he
Although they are
has.
still talking about marrying Cersei off again, right?
Yes, 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 that's
Yeah,
true. The last name would change though.
that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It would not be a Lannister that is the Lord of Casterly
yeah.
Rock.
I wonder if also Tywin worries that Tyrion's offspring would be like Tyrion.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
maybe,
just an
maybe,
assumption.
yeah, yeah. They probably don't fully understand how DNA
Right.
works
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
such. And she does the thing when he asks her if she wants to go to Casterly Rock. She does her, as Genevieve mentioned in the summary, her "I'll do whatever it pleases my lord." The cold courtesy that she does, and he immediately internalizes her cold acceptance of the idea, and wonders to himself, "What were you expecting? When have you ever made a woman smile, but with gold?" It's a tough judge for him to be viewing himself through.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He definitely needs to not base his own self-esteem on the way Sansa Stark treats him, because she is
Yes.
a child who has been forced into uh, an awful situation, of which
Yes, that's exactly what I
of
meant.
which
Why the tough
yeah,
judge.
he is the tip of the spear of that awful situation, even though he's not the worst part of it. Yeah, I mean,
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it just, that thought, it it somewhat, the thought that he has about himself somewhat explains why he's so associated with prostitutes, and struggles to believe that Shay could actually love him, and feels that the only way a woman would show interest in him is if she is paid to do so. It all kind of fits together with that thought he has about himself.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's not going to attract women, you know, just in and of himself. He doesn't have to pay them as a prostitute, perhaps, but even the ones who aren't paid as a prostitute will be eyeing the fact that he's the heir to Casterly Rock, or at least potentially the heir to Casterly Rock. So,
Right,
and the thing is, he's got charms, but he's never going to let a woman see those charms, apart from Shay. And
right, right.
he's already colored his own view of Shay by assuming that everything she does is motivated by money.
We do get an update on the Riverlands war and the war, the overall War of the Five Kings, as the Maesters are calling it. And it certainly seems like the rope is tightening around the Riverlands. And, a lot of the lords from the north and the Riverlands were killed at the Twins. But those that weren't will have a hard time resisting at this point.
Right. Yes. I mean, the because the Lannisters have sided with because the Freys have sided with the Lannisters, they have sort of like put a spear in the heart of the Riverlands, and there's no concerted force to hold back the combined forces.
Right. Yeah. And really, only River Run is set up for a long siege. Yeah. And we learn in this chapter that Seaguard has fallen. It seems like the Brackens and Blackwoods would be in a lot of trouble because they're not in a place like River Run that's so protected by the rivers to hold up to a long siege.
Given their
Uh,
history, one of them is probably selling out to the Freys and Lannisters as we speak.
right. We find out that Duskendale, Maidenpool area is firmly in the control of Randall Tarley, which was never in any dispute until Roose sent 3,000 men there to the slaughter, which we've now assumed was part of his agreement with Tywin.
Yes,
And
yes.
the emergence of the Red Wine Fleet being shipped off around Dorne to come up to the uh, eastern side of Westeros, it puts pretty much a hard deadline for Stannis. He must have a plan of action by
Right,
then
because he
because
can't
the Red Wine Fleet's
yeah,
it's the second largest fleet in the Seven Kingdoms behind the Iron Fleet.
yeah,
So,
he can't defeat
uh,
those. Yeah.
no, and if he just stays put on Dragonstone,
He'll be starved out.
he
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And the Ghost of Highheart hit another one right on the
Go
head.
on.
She said that she dreamed the goat sat in a hall of kings fevered while a great dog descends on him. I'm paraphrasing. I think I got it mostly right there. And we learned that the mountain has taken Harrenhal with almost no
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
contest. And that's where Vargo Hoat was last we saw of him. So it seems like, along with Melisandre clicking on all cylinders, the Ghost of Highheart is as
Yeah.
well.
So back to the wedding feast. Sansa does an interesting thing here because Sansa has been sort of like very sad and sort of subdued, but she actually mingles quite well. And Tyrion notices how good a job she does of mingling and how she is the
Right.
perfect lady and she would have been a good queen. One of the people that we see at the wedding feast is Lancel Lannister, Kevin's son, Tyrion and Cersei's cousin, and he's still nursing the wounds he took at the Battle of the Blackwater, and looks terrible apparently.
Terrible. He's got white hair and he's can barely stand up on his own. What in the world happened to him? It sounded like he aged 40 years in a matter of months.
Just be being the tug of war between Cersei and Tyrion could do that to anyone, I would think.
Well, that's
Mhm.
true. That's true. That's possible.
And then Sansa talks to Olenna Tyrell, who is Margaery's grandmother, and Olenna messes with uh, Sansa's hair. And this is a point of interest because, again, coming back to the Tyrells were quite comfortable with their daughter marrying a monster. That monster died during the wedding feast. Was the hairnet involved in some way? Because Olenna messed with it, clearly.
Yes. So going back a bit, just to remind people about the hairnet, back in Sansa 8 of A Clash of Kings, just after the Battle of the Blackwater ceremony, Sir Dantas gave Sansa the hairnet, and it's silver with gems of black amethyst from Ashae. And he told her at the time, it's magic, and it will give Sansa justice, vengeance for Joff's execution of her father, and take her home to Winterfell.
Mm, okay.
And then in Sansa 2 of A Storm of Swords, Sansa tells Dantas of the Willis Tyrell wedding plan and that she doesn't need him anymore. And Dantas says the Tyrells are just Lannisters with flowers and urges her to continue with the escape plan and reminds her to wear the hairnet to the wedding. Now, one more bit of information here. The ghost of Highheart dreams of a maid at a feast with purple serpents in her hair, venom dripping from their fangs. So
Oh, the
there,
amethysts may have been poisoned. Hmm.
possibly.
That's a lot. That's
Now,
that's a lot of circumstantial evidence right there, Mackelly. I'm liking this.
there is. And like you said, Elena fixes her hair and messes with her hairnet in the throne room, and then offers to take Sansa to Highgarden with her after the wedding. So, but it doesn't seem like Elena is the person that Dantas would be working with,
Given what he said
because
about the Tyrells.
yes. And now we do know that Dantas said he's working with a powerful friend who wasn't in the city at the time that he and Sansa were talking. Um, but they're working for they seem to be working for opposite goals, Dantas and uh, Olenna. Like you mentioned, Olenna wanted Sansa to marry Willis Tyrell. Dantas wants Sansa to escape with him on the wedding day. So maybe it's just a coincidence that she messed with her hair. Maybe it's supposed to be some sort of red herring that we're supposed
So
to
just a reminder of the
pick up on.
existence of the hairnet, perhaps. Because you do raise a good point that it feels like Dantas and Olenna might have similar motives, but you can't see them coming together to hatch a plan. It makes
Right.
no sense.
Yes. Agree.
But of course, whoever his powerful friend is who's out of town, that person might have the in with Olenna Tyrell. And so the individuals involved, let's say Sodontus says, you have to wear the hairnet. I have no idea what's going to happen to it, but you have to wear it. And
Right.
Olenna just knows there's a amethyst hairnet. You need to break off one of the amethysts and drop it in the wine. So
Yes. Everyone has their own little piece of information, possibly.
exactly, yeah.
Yes, but there are other alternatives to who might have been the culprit if Joff died of poison and not of choking on
Right.
a pigeon pie. But one other thing that happens in this conversation that might have been a little bit confusing for some people is Olenna talks to Tyrion about dwarf
Okay.
pennies. She goes on and on about dwarf pennies and says it must be such a chore to collect the dwarf pennies. And Tyrion says, I leave that to others. And she said, oh, I thought that would be something you'd be interested in doing. What she's referring to is dwarf pennies is the name given to the tax that Tywin put on prostitution to raise the morals of the city and help pay for this wedding.
Okay.
So you could see why Tyrion was so annoyed at her comments and wondered if her husband had intentionally ridden off
Right.
the
Right.
cliff.
Um,
So,
just while we're talking about the potential murder here, let's just mention who was in the vicinity. So there are
okay.
various Tyrells in the vicinity when the death happens. Margaery, Olenna, Garland, and his wife. Tyrion was close by, of course, and that's partly why Tyrion gets blamed. But it was his POV, and he didn't do anything. I mean, unless he's a sort of Jekyll and Hyde character, and we're only seeing one half of him, you would think that he would have mentioned, "I'm poisoning him now." Otherwise, what's the point of a
Right.
POV? And Sansa has seemed preoccupied the whole time. But again, we
Yes.
had her POV this morning, and it does feel like she might have mentioned that. Like, remember when she was saying, "Oh, look, a cloud that looks like a castle. I need a bath. Oh, book for Joffrey. I'm forgetting something, forgetting something. What is it? What is it? Oh, that's right, regicide. Yeah,
Yeah, it might have come up in her thoughts.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm giving Tyrion and Sansa a pass, which then, if you think about the people I just listed, that's all Tyrells. It's all Tyrells who were close by enough. If it was a local poisoning, if it was a sudden, not the pigeon pie was poisoned by the cook, but actually something dropped into Joffrey's mouth or
Right.
plate or
Yeah, I
cup.
mean, yeah, right. Garland Tyrell and his wife Leonette were sitting next to Tyrion and Sansa, and he says Garland seems to be quite a fan of Tyrion. He says something really nice to him about Tyrion in this chapter. He did so in the previous chapter. He did so at Tyrion and Sansa's wedding. So, maybe he seems to see things more clearly than many of the other lords.
Right, true
So,
that.
you know, maybe he felt his sister was not safe with Joff, and so set this whole thing in motion
Yeah.
here. Uh, Dantos was at the feast, so could Dantos during the confusion have
Mm.
been
And
involved?
as a fool, he would get more close physical access than most. So yeah, that's
Right.
possible. But he barely gets a mention in this chapter, which makes me think he would have got more of a mention
Or is it
the
is
other way
it
around.
the subtlety
Exactly.
of the fact that he was only mentioned?
Yeah.
I think Moonboy or someone was throwing something at him that was like the only mention of him in this whole
Yeah.
scene. But maybe that's the subtlety of it all. But who didn't do much at all to try and calm things down as this feast got more and more out of hand between Joffrey and
Everyone?
everyone, but especially Tywin. He didn't do much to stop the mayhem, and we know he's been planning a sharp lesson for Joff. Do we think he might have
Mm.
thought this is gone? This boy is out of control. This boy can't be ration. Can't be. His path is set, and he's going to embarrass my house. I need to take him out. Do we think that's something he would possibly do?
Yeah, that is quite interesting because in some ways his failure to curb Joffrey seems in some ways out of character. Tywin wants things his
Right.
way, and
Yes.
he's willing to dress people down to make things his way, but he himself has been dressed down by Joffrey, and
Right.
certainly now I mean, Joffrey was only going to be king. There was going to be Cersei was going to be regent, waiting for Joffrey to come of age. Tommen's even younger, so there really will be a time now for a regent to take the throne. Tywin might have ambitions on that, and who's going to miss Joffrey? I mean, even his grandfather can't love that kid, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's like I said, like Olenna messed with the hairnet, so the initial finger you'd point to her, but there's other possibilities. It is very possible the hairnet could have been her messing with the hairnet could have just been a red herring to throw us off the scent of the true culprit if he didn't just joke.
Tyrion sees Sansa glancing at Joffrey and wonders if she wishes she married Joffrey. He can't really think that. I mean, that must be the wine talking because Joffrey's been nothing but ghastly to her, and she's terrified and frightened and repulsed by Joffrey at this point.
Yeah, when I read that, literally, I said out loud, "Oh, come on
Yeah.
now." If Tyrion truly thinks that that's a possibility, these two are
Yeah, yeah.
doomed.
And then the other thing that Sansa does in this chapter, which is interesting, is her reaction to Ilyn Payne's new sword, which is not ice. She's like, well, that's the last person I knew was carrying ice. Where the heck is my dad's sword? And that goes to
Right.
what we've been speculating about for a couple of chapters, which is where did the Valyrian steel come from for the sword for Joffrey and the sword for Jaime?
Yes, it's certainly all evidence is now pointing toward ice being
Yeah,
the originator of the
yeah.
steel.
So the dwarf joust is horrendous on many levels. Of course, in particular because Tyrion was present to witness it. Tyrion does make a zinger against Joffrey, saying that he'd like to fight Joffrey because Joffrey's the only person he could beat, which was quite funny.
It was, yes, I give him that one. Point to Tyrion on that one. Yeah, Tyrion is obviously rightfully offended by this jousting, and he thinks to himself, "It's not the dwarves' fault. I will thank them and give them a bag of gold for their efforts. It's the plan. It's whoever organized this that I'm going to thank in a different way when this is
Right,
all
right,
over."
right, right.
And I wondered if Cersei or Joffrey, if one or both were involved. I assume Cersei was at least involved, but it seems more something that Joffrey would have planned
Yes,
because
it has the hallmarks.
it's
Yeah.
more. Yes, right. So
So what now for Margaery? She's had two husbands, both swiftly taken from her, both marriages unconsummated, particularly if you believe the gossip. Uh, Tommen's next in line to the throne. He's a bit young for marriage. Uh, so what of the Tyrell Lannister alliance? It kind of needed this marriage to forge it for good, and now this marriage is gone. Will they try and marry her to Tommen, or is there friction ahead for the Lannister Tyrell alliance?
Right. I guess uh, a lot depends on where they go from here. If infighting starts, or was this planned all along? What was were they? It wouldn't make sense for them to plan to back out of an alliance with the Lannisters because the Lannisters have gotten so much control over the realm now.
Yeah,
It would be tough for the Tyrells to just back out of it all.
here's an interesting continuation. So Tywin assumes the throne as regent, and he marries Margaery, and he sires a whole new
Oh,
crop of Lannisters.
oh my goodness! I hadn't even thought of that.
But then there's a succession problem then, because Tywin might want his own young kids to be the next in line to the throne, not his grandson Tommen.
Yeah, or maybe he'd just be content with the having an official
To
heir
Casterly
to
Rock.
Casterly
True
Rock.
enough. True enough. So there's no evidence, actual evidence, that Tyrion was involved in this. We were following his
Right.
POV. But there are some circumstantial things that do count against him. First of all, his history of threatening the dead king. Uh,
He's done that quite a
yeah.
bit.
Secondly, Joffrey points at him as he dies, which is not a good look.
Yeah, and Tyrion wonders though, is he asking me for help? Is he
Yeah.
offering me an apology? But someone else could look at it and say he is fingering the
Right.
culprit
Yeah.
with
And
that.
then the third thing is, again, it's not evidence, but Cersei's immediate condemnation. The first to announce the killer, often that voice will get heard. It ought not to be
Sure.
enough, but juries have convicted on less. Can he talk his way out of this, or more likely talk his way deeper into this? So what?
His big mouth. He's mentioned his big
But
mouth.
then the downstream implications of that. Are what about this? What does this mean for Sansa? Is this a chance for her
Right.
to escape the marriage she never wanted? Is it a chance for her to escape? Escape? I mean, is Sodontus actually going to spring a plan to get her out of here as he's promised? And what if
Right.
Shay? Let's assume that Tyrion might elude his fate. Would she be content to sit around emptying Sansa's chamber pot waiting for that day? Or is she going to move on because she is a mercenary?
And she's young and beautiful and can if she chooses to.
Yeah. Lot, lots of people have decisions to make because of this.
Yeah. And is Sansa missing because she's escaped, or was she just disappeared in the chaos and hiding under a table somewhere or
Right, right, right,
something?
right.
You
Yeah.
know?
All right, let's move on. Give me some background, Mackelly.
Well, I put together a little bit because I knew this chapter was going to be discussion heavy. So Tyrion suggests that he and Sansa leave King's Landing for Casterly Rock after the war ends. I mentioned that a minute ago. And he wants to show Sansa some of the sights of his home. He mentions three: the Lion's Mouth, the Golden Gallery, and the Hall of Heroes. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of what info I could find on those three uh, features of Casterly Rock. So, the Lion's Mouth is the gigantic main entrance to Casterly Rock. It's a huge natural cavern with ceilings up to 200 feet high that is located on the south face of the rock. It can be accessed through a stone stairway with steps wide enough for 20 riders. So, the Golden Gallery, that contains all of the Lannister treasures, including gilded ornaments and such.
Valyrian steel swords. Oh no, wait.
Oh no, no, not at the moment. Although they do now have two in their
Hmm.
possession, but none of them are expected to be held at Casterly Rock,
Right,
I
I guess
guess.
not.
And then finally, the Hall of Heroes. This is where the Lannisters and their close kin who have died valiantly are buried. The armor of Lannisters of old are also displayed in the
The
hall.
Rains of Castamere are buried there.
They are
Okay,
not.
just checking. All right, comparison with the television show. This is all mostly captured, of course. You can't really avoid this. It's such a hinge point of the story. But there are a handful of interesting
Right.
nuggets I wanted to mention. As the High Septon says the words, "Cursed be the man that tears them asunder," Olenna and Loras Tyrell are in shot over Marjorie's shoulder. Mhm.
Oh.
That the High Septon also says Joffrey of House Lannister and House Baratheon in that order.
Oh,
Olenna fusses with Sansa's hair and jewelry while inviting her and Tyrion to visit her in Highgarden. It's not. She's not wearing a hairnet. She's wearing a. It's a necklace. Uh,
okay.
Joffrey gets bored of some of the singers and hurls coins at them violently. Margaery looks troubled by this. Uh, the joust of the small people is made worse by there being five of them representing the five kings. Renly is portrayed as flamboyantly gay, and Loras Tyrell storms off. Uh,
All right.
and Sansa gets to witness Robb being decapitated. Joffrey finds the whole thing hysterical. Tommen laughs too until he notices that Tyrion is not laughing, and then he stops. The Martells and the Tyrells are also not laughing. Joffrey does not appear drunk in the show. He pours wine all over Tyrion, certainly justifying murder, and Tyrion passes him the wine as his cupbearer, which he is christened for the day, and immediately thereafter he dies. So Tyrion is certainly close by at the time. But
Right.
that's what the TV had. The TV show had. Pedantry Corner. I don't have anything for this, but 77 courses is too many.
Yes, it is. That
Hmm.
they don't even have any of the Northmen there. There's no Umbers or anybody who might actually eat 77
Right.
full
And,
courses.
and and none of them seem to be sort of like a little lemon sorbet to cleanse the palate, you know.
Right. There should be at least 12 of those.
Exactly, yeah. All right, news and notes. We're going to have a live video chat for our Lord Paramount and Kingsguard sustainers. We'll send you an email with specifics when we're ready for it.
That's right. And we have a review. This was a comment from our latest YouTube episode. And so I thought we'd read it out here because it was enjoyable to read. It goes like this. I was looking for a way to re-enjoy Epic A Song of Ice and Fire and stumbled over this podcast on Spotify. In the beginning, I had to get used to the chatting by Simon and Mackelly. Yeah, don't we
It's the
all?
price you pay.
But but in the meantime, I'm enjoying their interaction, and it feels like I've gotten to know them quite well.
Yeah, you have.
Mostly, yes, yeah. If you've made it this far, you've certainly gotten to know us pretty well. Mostly listening while cycling to and from work or in the evening while bringing my kid to bed. Now I've finally caught up to this last episode and I'm having to wait for the next. Oh no. That was. I forgot to give the name. Maria del
Maria de Vries. Maria de
De
Vries.
Vries. Maria De Vries. Sorry, Maria De Vries. I forgot to give your name at the beginning. Uh, but it has motivated me not to further procrastinate leaving a praising review. Well, thank you very much. Their down to earth and open conversation is refreshing and entertaining. I will spare them saying they have great chemistry. We always enjoy hearing that we
Hmm.
have great
We
chemistry.
do.
So
Yeah.
never a problem there. The podcast is well set up, great summaries, interesting discussion, funny, and I also very much appreciate the background provided with the characters and situations. Thank you both for the work and effort you put into this. I'm looking very much forward to continuing listening and perhaps interacting on Discord. All the best from Germany from a Dutch fan.
Thank you, Maria. That is awesome.
That
I
is, thank you very
I have to
much.
say, actually, that could have been written by ChatGPT. If you said, I'm a Dutch mother who listens to a Game of Thrones podcast, it might have come up with exactly those words. It's like, mention the cycling, putting the kid to bed, you know.
Right.
But no, it's really nice. Thank you very much, Maria.
Yes, thank you so very
All
much.
right, it's time we put this one to bed. So long, Joffrey. You will not be missed.
No, not so much.
Yep. Yep.
And
And all hail King Tommen. He's got to be better.
right, yeah. I mean, he's next in line, right? I mean,
Yeah.
certainly it gives Tywin more power and longer
Yeah.
uh, reign as Hand of the King. Will he step in and become King Regent now instead of Cersei being Queen Regent? Seems like he's not thrilled with the way that Cersei does what she does.
Yeah.
And Bronn mentioned a plan similar to this ages ago. He mentioned killing Joffrey and promoting the more malleable, sweet Tommen. So,
Ah.
you know,
one more suspect.
Right. Could it
Yeah.
be Sir Bronn?
And does all this spell trouble for Sansa, or did she get away? I mean, she went missing at the end of the chapter, so is this good news for her, or will she be dragged down by Tyrion?
Yeah, am I right in remembering that the chapter ended with Cersei blaming both of them, Tyrion and his wife? Am I making that up, or did that happen?
I'm glad you came to me with that question, Mackelly. Yes, yes, she did.
Okay, I knew you'd remember. I knew, I knew if any of us would remember, it was you. So she has been named as a co-murderer by the
Right,
queen. So
right. But she went missing, so that does give us the a little flicker of hope that maybe Sedontus is the one pulling the strings here and has got her out of there.
yeah, I certainly can't imagine Dantas being the mastermind behind the plan,
No.
but he sure seems involved. Is Do you think this was just a happy accident, this death at the end of this uh, feast, or was it always planned? Because he told Sansa, the wedding, there will be chaos during the wedding. That's when you'll slip away. People will be distracted. Oh, they were distracted, all right,
Yes, they
but they would have been
were.
distracted regardless.
Right. Not as
This is a
distracted.
whole, yeah,
Yeah.
this is a whole nother level of
Yeah.
distraction.
The other big suspects for me are the Tyrells protecting Margaery. But then also, I'll say anybody with a conscience or a care for the realm. And somebody who always says that they care for the realm is Lord Varys. He
True.
very much talks about that. And you know who else cares for the realm is Jamie Lannister, but he's not really on hand to do this. And he is the father of the dead child, so probably wouldn't be him.
It doesn't seem possible, but you never know.
Yeah.
And
But
like I said,
Tywin's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
yes,
that's made me interested now because he doesn't. I can't imagine he takes the slights that Joffrey has perpetrated on him lightly, and
right.
you feel like he's tried to curb the worst of it a little bit, and then he stopped curbing any of it, kind of washed his hands, and
Yes,
then yeah, and then it came to an end abruptly, and that makes you feel like he might be involved.
you're right. He did stop trying to
Hmm.
do anything to curb the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, good point.
So it's real trouble for Tyrion. He's got so few friends left now.
Right. Garland Tyrell, he seems to be his
The
friend.
only one,
Will
yeah.
he step up for him, or will he
And even
not?
Garland Tyrell might move aside now. Um,
Yes, right. Yeah.
and is all this an opening for Stannis? You know, is he got a chance here now?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's chaos in King's Landing.
yeah. It certainly doesn't hurt Stannis, but I would say as long as Tywin's in power,
Yeah.
it should stay the hand of anyone else thinking of rising up. I mean, Tywin single-handedly pretty much squashed this rebellion. The deal with Roose caused the rout at Duskendale, which really diminished Robb's army. The deal with Walder Frey eliminated Robb Stark. The deal with the Tyrells ended Stannis on the Blackwater with heavy help from Tyrion. But if something were to happen to Tywin, that might be a game changer.
True, true. And next we go back to Sansa, so we'll find out where she's gone.
That's right. That'd be good to know. It's good that we're not off to Essos or somewhere far away.
Quite,
We'll
quite.
we're staying right here, so that's very exciting.
There are four ways that you can help us. You could leave us a positive review. You could buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal or become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level. You could donate to our cause directly through our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.